Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So today I got another 8 CGC 9.8 comics to invest in on a $600 budget. Yeah, and we're getting up there with these budget style videos. Yeah, we already did 500, 400, 300, and 200. So be sure to check those ones out in the archives. Yeah, we went through some great key issues on those. But this video here, a $600 budget, that's serious money. So I think you can expect to get a really great investment grade 9.8 for that amount of money. And really happy with how the list came together. I think, yeah, all of these 9.8s really stand on their own as great books, as you would expect for on a $600 budget. So first one here, we'll start right at the top. One of the biggest key issues out there in the CGC 9.8, I think. It's an Amazing Spider-Man, number 361. Yeah, I brought mine out here. First full appearance of Carnage. You know, in my opinion, probably the best 1990s cover out there. Yeah, just so memorable, and it's so popular and well collected. Now, this one's kind of heating up now. Having it on a $600 budget video is pretty expensive given its price history, and we'll get into some of the price history. But yeah, certainly, like, Let There Be Carnage, Venom 2 is coming out next year at some point, probably. The Venom 2 movie, so this book's a little bit hot. We'll talk about the price in a sec, but I haven't looked on the census. There's 3,954 in the CGC 9.8 blue labels, so almost 4,000 in the context of this being probably the most popular 1990s book. And 1990s, the early 90s being the most popular era for comic books. So you do got to keep that in mind, but it is a lot from like a collector perspective. I said that's kind of a negative of this book and some of these earlier 90s books is that there's almost 4,000 of them in the CGC 9.8. So the 9.8 ratio, 25.9%. So of all graded copies, 25.9% of them are 9.8s. For an early 90s book, that's not too bad. It's almost as rare as New Mutants 98. So New Mutants 98 being a little bit more expensive for sure, like about 1,000 now. I think that one's kind of flirting with. Certainly with the Deadpool rumors, it'd be interesting to see what that one's going to do currently. But this one a little bit cheaper and a little bit less rare than New Mutants 98 in the CGC 9.8, but not that bad. 20 of all graded copies, 25.9% are 9.8s. So some of the pricing here, we're kind of right in the mid 500s. Two selling on eBay kind of for decent prices, I think. $587. Another one for $540. This in the direct edition as well. Keep in mind, the newsstand's a little bit more expensive. I think some of the newsstands are kind of in the 800 range right now for this one in the newsstand. In the early 90s, newsstands were pretty rare, so they have a bit of a different price range. But in the direct, $587, $540. That's pretty expensive, certainly, just to give you an idea, like over 12 months ago, about this time last year, let's call it, in the direct, these would go for like $375, was a pretty good deal, maybe even $350 if you were just right on top of your searches. So they've come a long way, kind of $350 to, $587 and $540 right now. Gives you an idea of how these promotions and new movies really affect the prices of books. Do you want to get out there and buy this one right now? If you're the biggest Carnage fan, maybe I would aim closer to 500 in the CGC 9.8 for a direct, if you can swing that. But, maybe a year after the Venom 2 movie, are these going to be, $587? Probably not. There's so many of them. There's, almost 4,000. I have a feeling this one could be under 500 again. A year after the Carnage movie or something like that, let's call it. But if you want to get in there right now, closer to 500, hopefully, in the CGC 9.8. But yeah, this one's fitting a $600 budget now. Yeah, so like a year ago, this would have been on a $400 budget video. So just shows how much the market's moved along in the last year here. Next one is a big key to talk about. It's a Watchmen #1. Yeah, big key to get in this $600 budget. Get kind of the first full appearance of the Watchmen. This book had sort of heated up in the past, 6 months to a year, let's call it here, with that Watchmen show doing really well, winning, a couple, I think it won Emmys or something like that, winning a bunch of awards. And this one had heated up to, I think, over 600 at times. But having a look at some completed listings today, definitely fit in a 600 budget. So there's 459 9.8s out there. Yeah, not a lot for kind of first appearance of Watchmen. It's definitely a popular book. And 9.8 ratio at 14 14.5%. This one's decently rare for kind of a mid to late 80s book. Yeah, decently rare. Of all graded copies, 14.5% of them are CGC 9.8s. And that's a good thing. Once you start getting into these higher budgets, you're getting into some, you know, rare 9.8 comic books. So Watchmen #1, some completed listings here for $549.99, one of them was, and $525. I'm pretty sure I saw one on there over 600 though. So that's kind of the range for this one, but I think, you know, you want to aim, we are sort of cooled down from some of, you know, when the Watchmen was out and winning all the awards, the show. So this one's, yeah, cooled off a bit. I think you can aim for kind of the 525 level would be a pretty great price on this one. And yeah, I mean, if you're a Watchmen fan, this is the one to get. So I think, yeah, right around 525 for a great one in a new case, 9.8, pretty great collector item, yeah. So Watchmen 1 in the CGC 9.8 is one to consider on a $600 budget. Okay, next one here is one I do have. It's an Uncanny XMen 141. Yeah, I brought mine out too. Interesting when we talk about prices with this one, because the newsstands, there's been a couple weird newsstand auctions lately that have went for pretty expensive. But this one, I think, just making the budget here. A great collector item, a classic X-Men book of the era. This is, you know, the John Byrne, Terry Austin era of X-Men is like the crown jewel, I think. Like so many big fans of that era. And this is near the end of the era and a book that you could still get in the 9.8 for like a decent price, whereas the earlier era of that, some of the books are really expensive in the 9.8. So it's, yeah, kind of a good sweet spot for X-Men fans. It's the first Rachel, like who's the Phoenix 2, and you get a bunch of alternate future X-Men in there for first appearances. But 631 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. So this is a 1981 book, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, 631 for a big X-Men key is not too bad. 14.2%, the CGC 9.8 ratio. Decent for, this is an early 80s book, so maybe, you know, you'd like to see that a bit lower for it, but then it would probably be a lot more expensive. So a really decent 9.8 ratio for the price, I think. So in this one, mentioning there, seeing a couple, you know, pretty expensive auctions in the newsstand version, but the direct version, I saw an auction go for $601. So kind of just used my executive power and put it on a $600 video. But I do think this one, you know, 9.8s are quite hot right now. X-Men's coming back to the MCU. X-Men books are getting really hot. You still might be able to find a lull in this one, I think, and grab it for like $575 in the next 6 months here, let's call it. You know, I still think you could get a deal on this one, and 600's certainly doable. But if you want it now, maybe even over 600, I would recommend possibly just it being such a cool one. And in the newsstand, yeah, I mentioned there was an auction, and it's one of the auctions that kind of makes me think there's a bit of a newsstand bubble right now. But it ended up going for like almost $1,000. Yeah, it was like 970 something, I think it was. So for the newsstand version, and this is in the 80s where the newsstands aren't particularly more well printed. Actually, it's the opposite. The directs are more rare during this period, but newsstands were on the grocery store shelves, so yeah, maybe they're more rare in the 9.8, but that's maybe another debate for another show. But the direct edition, right around $600 in an Uncanny X-Men 141 is like a really cool collector item if you're a big X-Men fan like me. Okay, next one here is a cool one. It's a Savage She-Hulk #1. Yeah, you get the origin and first appearance of She-Hulk in this one. This is a cool book, absolutely. It's, you know, it's one where this is an early 80s book as well, so it's kind of a similar time period to Uncanny X-Men here. But always struck me as, you know, not being too rare in the 9.8 for how old of a book it was. So Savage She-Hulk #1 here, there's a 2098 in the blue label, so over 2,000 for like, you know, a 1980 book is a lot. Yeah, I just remember this being surprising to me when I first looked it up a while ago. 9.8 ratio, 28% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8s. So that seems okay, but then, you know, that's not as rare as the first appearance of Carnage in the 9.8. Yet this book is much, much older, you know, what is it, 12 or 13 years older. So yeah, Savage She-Hulk, a cool book, and it's the one you want if you're a big She-Hulk fan, absolutely. But I personally have never really went after this one in the 9.8. But there's the She-Hulk show coming out on Disney Plus. That actually is going to be cool, I think. I think there's a lot of cool things they could do with a She-Hulk show. So this one's really heated up. So seeing some completed listings, kind of pushing the budget with this one too, but a bit of a story, I think, where if you are patient, you should be able to get this one under 600. I saw one sell for $595 in an auction. So, you know, it's still some are selling under 600, but some are selling over 600. So interesting story with this one. Like, you know, even before this Savage She-Hulk or She-Hulk Disney Plus series was announced, I talked about this one and said, you know, I don't really like it that much because of all the things I just said. Then that Disney Plus show came out and this one really heated up. And before that, it was like, you know, $325, $350. And then the Disney Plus announcements, it shot up to $550 to $600. Then it lulled and cooled down, and this is like in January of this year, let's call it, to about $400 to $425. And then all the 9.8s have really come back in the last, you know, 6 to 8 months, and this one has as well, back up to sort of the $550 to $575 price in the 9.8. So this one I would be patient on. There's a lot of them out there. It's not that rare for a 1980 book. Unless you were the biggest Savage She-Hulk fan, or a She-Hulk fan, this is the one to get. But if not, you could probably be a little more strategic on this one and hopefully aim to get it like close to 500, which is sort of like $100 less than what they're going for now. But I do think, you know, there'll probably be some lulls with this one before the Disney Plus show comes out, hopefully. And yeah, closer to 500 for a Savage She-Hulk, #1 in the CGC 9.8. Okay, next one is a really cool Joker comic book in the 9.8. It's Detective Comics 476. Yeah, this one's pretty old too. Yeah, from 1978. It's kind of like the sign of the Joker on the cover with the smiley possessed Batman kind of. Yeah, really kind of cool, memorable cover, I think too. And it is a great collector item. I've thought about this one a couple times. Yeah, I've, you know, throughout my collecting, have had a couple pop up in Canada for a decent price in the 9.8, and I was really tempted, you know, me being a big Batman and Joker fan. So on the census too, 50 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. Yeah, so just a 1 of 50. Yeah, this is one to consider if you're a huge Joker fan. Just fit in a $600 budget. We'll talk about price here, but for the money, yeah, a 1 of 50, you know, the sign of the Joker classic cover of the era in a perfect copy. I kind of think that's worth it. 9.5%, the CGC 9.8 ratio, and you get a single digit 9.8 ratio on this one. It is in the 70s, but of all graded copies, only 9.5% of them are CGC 9.8s. That's fantastic for a 9.8 book. So this one's got a lot going for it. If you're a Joker fan, like right now, it's right about 600, I think. When I was sort of looking at it, you know, I would have tried to get a deal around 500, and this is like a year ago, pretty much. So this one hasn't moved too much, but a little bit with the market. They're mostly selling around 600 right now, some over 600. So yeah, this one's kind of pushing the budget, but it might even be worth it. You know, if you want this one, if you love the cover, if you're a Joker fan, maybe even like 620 or something like that. Because yeah, there's only 50 of these out there, and I think this is just one you can really enjoy having if you're a Joker fan. And yeah, so hopefully under 600 though in the CGC 9.8. Yeah, Detective Comics 476, classic Joker cover to consider in the 9.8 on a $600 budget. All right, next one is a great modern, I think. So it's Teen Titans #12. Yeah, this is one I got as well. First full appearance of the Batman Who Laughs, who, yeah, I think in my opinion is probably my favorite modern villain. Yeah, that's come out kind of in the last like 3 to 5 years type of thing. Yeah, all about the Batman Who Laughs when I first read Dark Knight's Metal, and just I talked to a couple of people at my local comic shop one or 2 days there, and they were just so pumped up about him and like told me his whole origin and just got me all up to date. So ever since then, I've been really all about the Batman Who Laughs. I grabbed it. Yeah, Teen Titans 12. This book's come a long way too, but it's a great collector item for a modern comic book. I've made, yeah, in the 9.8 specifically. Yeah, I've made videos on this in the past saying this is just kind of an anomaly 9.8. It's interesting. So there's 608 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. So a 1 of 608 for like the most popular villain going right now is not too bad, actually. Surprised it didn't like skyrocket to over 1,000. Like Venom 3 third print in the 9.8, there's like 900 and something of them. So gives you an idea, 600 of these, a little bit less than that. They're pretty comparable books, I would say. Interesting though with this one, the 9.8 ratio, 29.2%. So of all graded copies, only 29.2% of them are CGC 9.8s. And this one just came out in 2017, like late 2017. So a lot of these went like, you know, right from the printing press to CGC almost, and still somehow a rare book in the 9.8. And that's really why I kind of purchased one and really have, you know, focused on this book. Most like modern videos in the 9.8. I really recommend this one because you don't see that often. That's like even a little bit lower than Ultimate Fallout 4 first print. So this one, and that in itself is, I always say that's a really nice rare one in the 9.8 as well. So this one with a 29.2% of all graded copies being CGC 9.8. That's nice and low and rare. Lower the better with these 9.8 ratios. Online here, kind of interesting with this one. I haven't really saw one on eBay sell in the last little bit. 565 is the last auction I saw. I am interested to see where this one's going to go because you know, that 565 certainly fit in a $600 budget. But Venom number 3, the third print in the 9.8, a couple of those had sold for $400. Yeah, and that one was right up there with this one when they were both hot. They were both around 800 in the 9.8. So I always said that maybe the third print could probably cool off a little bit more. But if Teen Titans 12 happens to cool off a little bit more, maybe you can get it under 500. I think that's a really good buy. Yeah, this is a modern that is pretty rare in the 9.8, and it's got really popular first full appearance of the Batman Who Laughs. So, yeah, and the thing to say with Teen Titans 12, there's that convention foil cover, and you know, that one, it looks pretty similar to this one, but it's a foil cover. I would probably actually go with the second print. There's a second print, Teen Titans 12, over the foil version. Like if you know, the foil version, I would probably just take the money and put it toward try to grab one of these, and it is more expensive, but certainly. But yeah, I would consider the second print with the red cover. Sorry, the red cover looks like a lot like this, but kind of has a red background. I kind of like the eye appeal of that cover over time, and I just think if you're going to spend in that sort of like, I'm pretty sure it's about like $170. The second print with the red background. I think that's about $170. So, you know, the convention edition I think is about that too. So if you're going to spend that amount of money, I'd probably go with the second print, to be honest, with the decent, kind of cool red background. Is a little more eye appealing over time. But all around, Teen Titans 12 is a modern, if you're a Villains fan, like, yeah, this is just one I'm glad I bought. And yeah, I kind of picked it up before it got really hot for like $220 American. This was like 2 years ago. Over 2 years ago, maybe. But Teen Titans 12 ended up being a pretty rare one in the 9.8. And, you know, last one's going for kind of 565, closer to 500, I think. You can buy this one right now if you really want it. Okay, our next one here is definitely a great key issue in the modern age. Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, and talking about the origin of Miles Morales. Yeah, there's a couple Ultimate Spider-Mans number 1s. This one from 2011. Origin of Miles Morales. Just in the first print, there's the more rare variant if you want to spend more, but just in this first print, I do like this cover, and this is a pretty great collector item. I think this one could have a good future, and yeah, we'll talk about the pricing in a sec, but 171 CGC 9.8s out there. So, you know, considering there's like 2,000 of Ultimate Fallout 4 in the first print, plus like all the second prints too, only 171 of these. You know, this is a really great collector item, I think, and I'm surprised there's not more, to be honest. Yeah, so, and also a 9.8 ratio of all graded copies. 33.7% of them are CGC 9.8s. That's not too bad at all. That's like, yeah, for a modern, that's really rare. A lot of times you don't see that, and that's probably why there's 171. If that was like 50% or 60%, like most modern comics, there would probably be about 400 of these. But it's pretty rare in the 9.8, so there's 171. Yeah, this is a pretty great collector item. And the prices are pulling back. Yeah, that's why I think this one you can get in there. I'm actually surprised that Ultimate Fallout number 4 in the first print in the 9.8, their prices have been pretty solid for a while. You know, right around this kind of 900 to 950 area, some even going close to 1,000. Maybe you get it under 900 if you're super lucky. But they've been holding that pretty hard. Whereas this book and the second print of Ultimate Fallout 4 have kind of pulled back a little bit, and I think they're attractive right now. Yeah, so this one is fitting a $600 budget. If you go, there was one on eBay that sold for $525.56. This is definitely one that was over 600 for like, you know, 3-4 months ago, peak like Miles Morales fever. This one was like pushing 800. I think I might have even saw some, you know, ones getting silly prices, possibly pushing 1,000 in this one. So I think you buy this one on the pullback right now. If you're a big Miles Morales fan, a one of 171 for right around 525, let's call it, right around that price, last price on eBay that I was seeing. I think this is a great one to consider. Yeah, and even, you know, for myself, I think if one of these popped up for $5.25 in Canada with decent shipping, I would probably pull the trigger, to be honest. Yeah, Miles Morales is definitely real and really popular, and the kids love him, and the first appearance has already taken off. So this is kind of second in line for your Miles Morales keys. Yeah, and it's still somehow underfollowed, I think, a bit. So yeah, you want to maybe pounce on this one right now if you're serious about it. Okay, a last one here on a 8 CGC 9.8 comics on a $600 budget. This is a cool one. It's a Daredevil 158. Yeah, classic book here. This is a great 9.8 collector item. This is the first Frank Miller work on a Daredevil comic. And his Daredevil run is like super iconic and tons of fans, and, you know, was so popular when it first came out. So the first Daredevil, you know, his first work on Daredevil is super collected. A great cover on this one. It's like the origin and death of, I think it's like Deathstalker or something like that. I forget the exact villain, but a great cover. Yeah, I love this cover. It's so eye-appealing. In the 9.8, there's 159 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. So not a lot of them out there, and even better, this is the most rare CGC 9.8 comic on the whole list here, with 7.4% of all graded copies being CGC 9.8s. Yeah, and that's anytime, yeah, the lower the better with these. Anytime you get into the single digits, that's a pretty rare 9.8. Interesting with this one, because I think we're kind of just fitting it on a $600 budget, I think. I talked about this one on it was like our 1970s 9.8s that you can still get for a decent price. And yeah, there were a couple that had sold on that video on the completed listings for like $550-ish. But there's a couple signature series ones that have sold since then, because Frank Miller did that signature event that were quite expensive. It might be tough to get this one in the $600 budget, but it's probably still doable. But I mean, if you're a big Frank Miller fan, Daredevil fan, this is one to focus on. I love the cover, so yeah, I think definitely one to add on a $600 budget video. Okay, yeah, that's the full list here. All right, so I'll have all 8 of them in the description below. Yeah, just if you want a quick resource of a list. Okay, so these budget videos are pretty great. Yeah, I'm, you know, moving forward here, we're getting into like the bulk here where, you know, 700, 800, 900 bucks, you could get so many great classic key issues in the CGC 9.8 that are like really well-known key issues, investment grade books. So yeah, the next few videos here will be fun. But yeah, for a $600 budget, this one came together nice, I think. I was trying to get over 10, but it's just kind of hard to think of some. So yeah, actually, if you have any other CGC 9.8s that you can think about in that sort of $500 to $600 range, let me know in the comments below. Okay, but thanks so much for watching today. Yeah, I really like these budget videos, and it'll be fun moving forward here. Getting into, as I said, some serious money and some great keys. So thanks again for watching, and if you haven't already too, I would invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. Yeah, I'd love to have you on our comic book collecting and comic book investing team. Hit the bell for all the latest notifications. Add me on Instagram and Twitter as well. All the links in the description below. But thanks again for watching. Message me on Instagram too if you had any questions. All right, thanks again, and I will see you on the next one.